Eddie Crowell please come up? I met Eddie last week on the putting green out at Ashburn. He's one of the good guys. I'm one of the lousy guys. Eddie Crowell was born on February 2nd, 1925 in Halifax, making him 72 years old. He's a professional weightlifter, as you can see. His father, Harvey, we got that out of a high school yearbook. His father, Harvey, while working for Bowater Mersey, had more time to play summer golf than did his friends, and so in order to have company, he introduced 12-year-old Eddie to the game. They played the Donald Ross designed White Point golf course down in Liverpool. Eddie took to the game immediately and found himself going out to the course even when his father was working. For those here tonight who didn't live through it, suffice to say that World War II wrought changes in practically every phase of life, and certainly sport was no exception. Gasoline rationing limited travel to sporting venues, including golf courses. But a more immediate problem was the cessation of the manufacture of sporting goods. Golf balls jumped in price from 12 cents a piece before the war to $2 a dozen in the early 40s, and then they became totally unavailable when manufacture of them ceased in 1943. Some say this is the reason great golfers like Crowell hit the ball so purely. In those days, if you didn't hit the sweet spot, the old balata balls became misshapen and smiled at you. Players would spend hours looking before giving up on a lost ball, especially if it was still round. All of these things meant that the only guys who could still play were the guys who could hit it straight, so the gap widened between the good players and others who might have improved if they'd had the opportunity to play. Of course, military service also interfered. Eddie was initially in the Air Force and then in the Army just as the war was ending. While stationed in Debert, waiting orders which would send him to either Europe or the Pacific, Truman dropped a bomb and the war soon ended. This caused some problems because while it made every sense to Eddie to fight for his country, it didn't make a hell of a lot of sense for him to spend every one of his waking hours picking blueberries for the officers' mess. Tusker O'Neill saw him in Truro during this period, remarked that Eddie looked like death warmed over. Story came out that Eddie had extended a weekend leave beyond the time allowed and had been charged with being AWOL. When Tusker saw him, he'd just come out of the brig where he'd spent a week on bread and water. After the war, Eddie resumed his golfing passion and enrolled as a Dow Commerce student. Friends say that Eddie's father tried it in vain to interest him in sailing, even buying him a 24-foot sailing boat one time. It once limped home so late in a race at the Armdale Yacht Squadron that not only had the prizes been awarded, but the meal had been consumed and all the people had gone home. Eddie gave up sailing. He preferred golf anyway. In golf, he wasn't coming in last. From early on, he found he could hit a long ball and practice so long and hard. There were few around who could match his short game. If you put together a great long game and a great short game, there's only one other element necessary to win tournaments, and that is luck. Stories have it that Eddie wasn't short on that commodity either, once hitting his tee shot over on the railroad track in the old number 5 at Ashburn, only to hit a train and bounce not only back over the fence, but on the green, allowing him to make a short birdie putt. Eddie Crowell had the right temperament for golf. When he lost, he always congratulated the winner and said, "See you next time." His friends admit, however, that one didn't want to ride home with him after he lost a tournament. He once made it from Hubbard's to Halifax in a 37 Dodge on the old highway in 27 minutes. But of course, he didn't always lose, otherwise we wouldn't be here tonight fussing so much. In the 7 years between 47 and 53, the Nova Scotia Open Championships, Eddie Crowell finished second one time, became third one time, and won an amazing 5 provincial championships, twice in Halifax, once in Sydney, once in Truro and Dartmouth. In 1947, he went to St. John, won the Maritime Championship as well. He was 4 times the Ashburn Club champion. He won the Abercrombie Invitational 3 times, the City and District Championship 3 times. He also won the Brightwood Goodwill Tournament, the Halifax Bicentennial Championship, and the Truro Invitational. All in all, during the 10-year span after the war, he also won 15 major championships. Eddie Crowell's Nova Scotia Open victory in 1956 was only the 2nd time in history that an amateur was able to win. He competed in several Canadian amateurs and represented the province on 9 Wellington Cup teams, making it to the quarterfinals in 1949. In 1946, he became the first Nova Scotian to play in the Canadian Open, that same tournament in which Tiger Woods missed the cut last month. Say no more. Day before the Open, a PGA Touring player named Zabowski had a little too much to drink, so Eddie stepped in as Sam Snead's partner and was able to win the cost of his trip from their opponents. Eddie Crowell stopped his competitive golf career in the mid-1950s. By the mid-1980s, he was back at it. He played on the Maritime Seniors circuit, leading his team to the Maritime Senior Four-Ball at Paragon in 1986, and again at Heartland Point in 1988. He became the Maritime Senior Champion in 1986, and then in 1988 he bowed out in grand style when, having shot an embarrassing 82 the first day at Digby Pines, he came out on the last day of the championship on what turned out to be his last competitive round to shoot the dramatic best tournament round of 75 to go out a champion. It was exactly 50 years since he'd entered his first Nova Scotia amateur. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to introduce to you for induction into this hallowed hall the man who was, according to all who were playing during his competitive days, the best amateur golfer in the Maritimes. The first man to be named provincial amateur golf champion 5 times, a man who won well over 25 major maritime championships, a man who represented the provincial on the provincial team 9 times on the Wellington Cup, the first Nova Scotian to ever play in the Canadian Open, Mr. Edwin Harvey Crowell.
I'd ask Mr. Jeff Clark, Director of Sales and Marketing, Olin Breweries Limited, to please come forward for the presentation. Come on over into the spotlight, Jeff. I love your jacket.
Yes, I do too.
Where'd you get one like that? That comes with golf. That comes with golfing success. Look, tremendous career. I know people are curious that you won 5 provincial titles in a 7-year span up until about 1953. Then you quit. You quit the game, walked away from it. For what reason?
Well, I didn't walk away from it. I just stopped playing tournaments. I still played golf.
Still played golf, but not competitive.
Not competitively until 56.
Okay.
I snuck back and won the Open.
All right. Of all the championships that you won over your illustrious career, is there any one that you can look back on with particular fondness?
I think 1953 Nova Scotia Amateur, when I knew I'd beaten Gerald Milky's 4 championships, and I now was the first one to have 5.
Well, only 3 Nova Scotians have won 5 provincial championships, including Peter Hope, a fellow inductee who sends his best wishes tonight. Could not be here, by the way.
Yes, I know Peter, and I send my best wishes to him in Ottawa because he's been inducted into another Hall of Fame for curling.
Great all-around athlete, wasn't he?
Yes.
You're still playing, and you're still playing well.
Oh, once in a while I get a good shot.
From what I hear, more than a good shot, and more than once in a while. Eddie, congratulations, richly deserved. You have taken your rightful place in the Nova Scotia Sports Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much, Pat.
Eddie Crowell, ladies and gentlemen.